Pourquoi la maison du gouverneur a-t-elle été construite à cet endroit?
So the history of how Government House was built on that site is actually quite interesting. Edgar Dewdney owned quite a lot of land around Regina. And even though everyone thought that Government House was going to be moving from Battleford to Fort Capel, he actually influenced the decision and basically moved it to where in Regina today so that he could sell land to settlers and get rich. So the first Government House that was built in Regina was built in 1883. However, it was so poorly built that they actually immediately started to look to build a new one. So construction started in 1888 on what is currently today's Government House, and it was completed in 1891.
Le style de l'architecte a-t-il influencé la maison?
The architect of the time was Thomas Fuller, and he was actually the Chief Dominion Architect for Canada, and he would have had very similar tendencies with a lot of his buildings. He was actually one of the people responsible for the Parliament buildings in Ottawa. However, his design was slightly altered by Maurice Sharon, who followed him after as in the Ministry of Public Works with the federal government. And so it was a couple of architects who had their designs on Government House, and they would have brought their own unique interpretations to Government House.
Quelle était l'inspiration pour son décor et sa structure?
It was basically a style of luxury and comfort. So everything was designed, even the orientation of the building, it actually faces east and west. And that basically meant that the sidewall, which is usually the smallest part of the house, was facing the north. And so in the prairies we get very, very cold winters, and so the north winds that were coming down during those times would make any home feel really cold. So what they did was they put the servants' quarters on that side so that the Lieutenant Governor and his family would actually stay nice and warm. It would get lots of sunlight because it would get sunlight first thing in the morning and also the last thing at night. Inside, it's all about luxury. It was one of the first homes to have electricity, central heating, and indoor plumbing. And so it also was one of the first few homes to have a telephone as well. So little bits of luxury that today are basically considered to be relatively standard were extreme luxuries back in 1891 when it was first built. So all of this represented the higher class that a person housed. So the Lieutenant Governor, when he lived here, was representing the Queen of England. As a result, it was a place built for royalty.
C'est quoi son importance dans l'histoire de la province?
So Government House is an extremely important part of Saskatchewan history. Basically, right now, any laws that are to be passed by the provincial government, in order to come into effect, they actually have to be signed by the Lieutenant Governor. And so he does so at Government House. It also tells the story of how life was like back in the early 20th and late 19th centuries. It talks about the lifestyles of, granted, a more upper class than the working class of the time, but it also tells you more about how people lived, the type of struggles that they would have gone through, even in luxurious homes like Government House. It also tells you a greater understanding as students of the importance of the role of the Lieutenant Governor within society today, the role as well. So by taking school trips, field trips, or just a regular tour on a normal day, we're able to tell that history to the public so that there's a greater appreciation of the role of the Crown in Canadian politics.
Quelle fonction avait-elle et comment ces fonctions ont-elles changé avec le temps?
So Government House has had a number of uses over the years. So as Gareth had said, it was built in 1891, and it was the home and the offices of the Lieutenant Governor of the Northwest Territories. But then in 1905, it was the home and residence of the Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan. And then in 1945, it became a convalescent home. And so it was leased to Veterans Affairs, and it became a convalescent home for veterans to stay there. And then it stayed a convalescent home for about 12 years. And then it turned into an adult education center. And then there was also some office buildings for Saskatchewan Arts Boards, places like that. And then in 1968, there was a group of volunteers that were called the Saskatchewan House Committee, and they lobbied and advocated to the government to try and get Government House to, it was designated in 1968 a National Historic Site. And then they wanted the government to try and fund preservation and restoration of the building. So it took them 10 years in order to get that approved. And in 1978, construction started to restore Government House. And then in 1981, it became a museum for all of Saskatchewan to enjoy and learn about the history of Government House.
Quel genre de cérémonie y avait-il dans la maison du gouverneur?
Government House has always been a house where lots of celebrations and ceremonies, award ceremonies are hosted there. And of course, back in the early 1900s, royalty would come, royal visits, dignitaries, and those people would actually stay at the house. There was rooms dedicated for those guests. And today, it is used for lots of ceremonies that the Lieutenant Governor hosts. Lots of award ceremonies are held there. The swearing in of the new cabinet and ministers and premier is held there. And so it is really a house of celebration and ceremony.
Quels sont les éléments emblématiques de la maison?
So Government House has a number of interesting pieces both in the house and out of the house that basically represent the importance of the building. So if you actually go to the outside of the building and you look above the main entrance of the old building, you'll see VR, and that stands for Victoria Regine, and that just basically is indicating that it was built during the time of Queen Victoria. If you actually look at our 2005 edition, which was built then, it actually has ER because Queen Elizabeth II was the queen when that wing was built. And in the house, you'll see subtle but distinct representations of Saskatchewan in the house. So you'll actually see, even on the hinges, the crest of Saskatchewan engraved on each of those. On a number of pieces of furniture as well, we have a number of lamps, umbrella stands even, that have the Saskatchewan crest placed upon them. So there's a certain style and elements of Saskatchewan that they try to incorporate in the design and luxury of the building.
Y a-t-il des événements communautaires qui ont lieu dans la maison?
There is lots of community events that are held at Government House. It's a very busy place normally. So every year the Lieutenant Governor's office hosts the New Year's Day levee or celebration, and it is open for all people to come and enjoy the house. You get to meet the Lieutenant Governor, and there's food and drink and tours of the house and entertainment. It's a lot of fun. He also, or she, depending on the Lieutenant Governor at the time, hosts a Canada Day celebration on Canada Day on the grounds of Government House, which is a lot of fun as well. Thousands of people come out for that as well. And then Government House, our staff, we host throughout the year many community events. So we have a Halloween celebration called Bump in the Night. We have a Christmas celebration called Old Fashioned Victorian Christmas. We have Family Day festivities on Family Day. We try and do different community events on some special days like Genealogy Day and Commonwealth Day. And we have a celebration on Indigenous Peoples Day. So we have a number of things that happen, and all of the events, for the most part, at Government House are free and open to everybody in the community. And we really want to encourage everybody to come to Government House and feel like it's their house, come and explore, because it is the house for Saskatchewan. There's also some other events that happen at Government House. We have a very important group called the Government House Historical Society. And they're actually, their name has changed, but they're the group that, remember I was saying about the group of volunteers that lobbied the government to get Government House restored and preserved. So they're the group that did that, and they're very important to our house because they do a lot of events that fundraise to help allow us to do all these amazing events. So they do our very popular Victorian teas that happen every month at the beginning of the month, the Saturdays and Sundays. They also host a black tie auction. Every year they host caroling called the Dickens Singers. These are all very popular events. Sometimes there is a cost to attend because they are a fundraising group to help fund the activities at Government House.
Quel genre d'activité se passe dans la cour de la maison?
Okay, so outside on the grounds at Government House, we have 8 acres of beautiful Edwardian gardens, and actually I was out there this morning. It's looking gorgeous. And so we encourage people to come. They can take tours of the Edwardian gardens. So we provide tour guides, and we have lots of interesting facts about Government House and the grounds that they can take. They can also, we encourage people to bring a picnic, bring a blanket, bring a football. We have beautiful grounds to be doing things like that. Actually, at the back of Government House, we have a beautiful deck surrounded by plantings that you can enjoy, read a book. And also you can come and get from our visitor experience hosts geocaching devices, and so people can participate in that. We also will have croquet sets that people can borrow and bocce sets that people can borrow. So we do want people to come. It's a beautiful grounds. Enjoy it, especially this time of year.
Ressemble-t-elle aux autres maisons des lieutenants-gouverneurs d'autres provinces?
So, not really. Government House is, it's actually all the government houses across the country are quite a bit different, I would say. The closest government house to Saskatchewan's Government House, I would say, is Winnipeg's or Manitoba's. They're similar, both have influences for Italianate kind of influences. The one in BC is really quite different because it wasn't built until the latest edition of Government House in BC wasn't built until the 1950s, and it was looks more like Tudor style, like chalet style. And then of course the government houses in Eastern Canada were built like 100 years before Saskatchewan's Government House, and so they all look quite different, I would say, and which is good because then people get to kind of experience the different types of architecture throughout the years.